Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
A very, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to today's edition of the Hotline. My name is Roger Sturiawe, and I have the privilege to be standing in for my comrade Abdalatif. I know most of you are used to having him on Monday evenings because he's the one who usually drives the discussions on this day at this time. Most of the times we had the General Mugishamuntu last weekend, and he was last week on Monday, and he was telling us a lot of things around the political status of the country and where we stand. Of course, drawing highlights on some of the by-elections that were happening in Serere and where they stand. So today, we are going to have a discussion with another senior counsel. He's a senior counsel. He's not a senior citizen yet. He's a senior counsel. So he's going to be talking to us about climate change. He's going to be talking to us about human rights. He's going to talk to us about a number of things, really, governance related. And so I hope that you join us. You can find us on the Alternative Uganda and Digitalk TV on our social media platforms, Facebook, and you can also find us on YouTube, the Alternative Uganda. The discussions are always going to be there. YouTube comes a little bit later, but the Facebook one is always live. So you can join in the discussion, send in your comment or question, and we'll try to address it by the end of the discussion. So I have Counsel. I am going to invite him to say hello to all of you, and then we can get into the discussion today, sir. You're welcome today.
Thank you. It's my pure delight to be here this evening, and I send my salutations to the Digitalk audience.
Okay, thank you for being with us today, for accepting to be here with us. I understand it's not your first time, so we are grateful that you always create time to come and, share some wisdom with us. We are very grateful for that. Now, today, I want to begin on another note. Someone said it's a very good day for the continent. The coordinated protests that have happened across Africa. We have one in Kenya about Raila Odinga obviously sanctioning them, saying it's going to happen actually weekly for him, saying that they are protesting the commodity prices. They are going very high, and so he says the government needs to handle that. Obviously, also on top of the fact that he's still protesting the election results that happened last year in August, and William Ruto. And then we have the same, almost similar protests happening in South Africa, headed by the Economic Freedom Fighters, yes, EFF, led by Malema, obviously calling on the resignation of the President Cyril Ramaphosa. His is on mostly on unemployment, youth especially, and power load shedding that has been happening. I had a friend who was in South Africa, I think like 2 months ago, and he was saying that literally in South Africa, electricity would go for 4 hours, come back for 4, and go back again for 4. So those are some of the reasons why that has also been happening. But similar stuff have happened across Africa. Then Nigeria, it's also about elections. Tunisia, it's about the president. Obviously, he's apparently trying to amend the constitution. So I think he wants to run for another term or something like that. And it's also an independent day there. In Senegal, it's also the same thing. But Senegal, it was happening throughout the last whole week. So in Africa, these whole things have happened from last week to this whole week and probably moving forward. Do you think this is political coincidence, or is there some sort of design that people should be paying attention to?
Neither. It's not coincidence, it's not design. what it is that the problems that Africans share seem to be almost synonymous across the continent. Africans are they are disenchanted, they are aggrieved, and they are crying out to their governments. They are pushing hard against bad governance, and even where elections occur, they are inconclusive, and they have legitimacy questions. But even if elections were legitimate, fair, and free, if the government in charge does not answer the questions of the day, then they are bound to face the wrath of the masses, either rising up or the government has to use a lot of force to smother the uprising. You realize that all these, more than political considerations, all these are economic outbursts.
Yes, most of
them. Yeah, the economic outbursts, the rest of the earth are demanding attention to their issues. It is bread, it is electricity, people want lighting, people want respect, it's about dignity, they want their voice heard. So these problems pervade the continent. Unemployment, youth unemployment, they pervade the continent. It is little wonder that these strikes are occurring, and where things touch people's stomach, they unite people. There is this solidarity of the stomach. It is just involuntary, it's natural. You don't need to be told once you start getting hungry that you should go on the streets, that you should make noise. You eventually find yourself on the street, even if you are the most detached from things you think are political or even chaotic. So what is happening across the continent is that people have lost patience. They have, by the time people go on the streets, they have lost confidence in administrative remedies and channels of resolving these conflicts. They have no hope in a judicial resolution of the matter, and they think they are being ignored. And that's why they get on the streets where they think you cannot miss them. You have to pay attention to them. And we shall see some governments paying attention, at least initially cosmetically, but some may really solve some of the problems. Some of the problems will persist until there is another demonstration. In Tunisia, it is a failure of the Arab Spring. The fact that the promise of the Arab Spring,
did not
and the man who touched himself, that initial hope of democracy in Tunisia is just up in flames, and that's what the latest demonstration is partly about. And imagine the maneuvering, the manipulation of the constitutional order for someone to artificially extend his life, his presidency.
And dissolution of parliament, actually.
Yeah, so they are copying each other, African leaders, but they are copying the worst of each other. So President Museveni copies Mobutu, this one now is copying Museveni. Things are getting worse. Instead of copying good things, African leaders have a tendency to copy the worst of each other.
Has it also made especially now you did talk about the Arab Spring, that whole scenario in I think it was...
There is nowhere where the Arab Spring, I think, is showing to have stood the test of time. Maybe to some extent in Sudan, but it is also under severe test. The military has pushed back and usurped the will of the people. The Arab Spring was a good idea. It tried to snatch power from the military into the people, to the civilian leaderships, but the military has been crawling back, pushing back, and usurping this power in Egypt, in Sudan, in Tunisia, in Libya. Libya is really it's a pure mess. So ultimately, the Arab Spring has not succeeded. Its initial flames of hope have withered, and we are back to square one.
Now, in a follow-up to the Arab Spring, do you think this day could actually make another way, sort of another Arab Spring?
No, it's too early. It's too early to say that, but it is good that people refuse to buckle under the pressure of the military. people refuse to accept the unacceptable, that people stand up for their rights, that people demonstrate, and I'm happy they have been demonstrating peacefully, that people hold their leaders to account even when the leaders seem reluctant, detached, and basically far removed from the reality of the people and unwilling to listen to them, that people are continue trying to push the boundaries of freedom and of pressing their leaders to the extent of going to the streets. It's not easy to go to the streets. It's sacrificial.
Yeah.
There are risks, and you need to conduct it in a most disciplined manner so as not to give the security forces an excuse that to clamp you down on the premise or pretext that you're violent. So you have to be disciplined to remain non-violent
And in order.
and ensure that the right message gets out, and that all the people who are demonstrating are really speaking with one voice, and they, if it's about clothes, they wear the same clothes, they know when to go to the streets, when to withdraw, when to get critical supplies of water, of food, and other necessities that are necessary to maintain the momentum and to keep these guys coming on the street until the government listened. And that's why it is interesting that Raila is saying not every day continuous, but every Monday until they listen, because this is a survival strategy. Once people go here, when they burst on the street, on the third day they have given up.
Yes.
So if you can say that once a week, once a month, but make sure that when you are on the streets, you really show force. It's big and it's irresistible. I think that's a very interesting strategy.
Yeah, it is. It is. But these breakouts, these violence, I don't want to call it violence, but the protests and riots that are happening, does it send any implications, make any implications for any of the other countries that might still be peaceful for now, but sort of face the similar situations that these people are protesting for in those countries? The case in point is probably Uganda, where you have had people have issues, have a hit with the government back and forth time and again. But we have not come to a point where people have felt like they are either for lack of direction and leadership or for lack of momentum to move on the street and be able to do similar things.
Well, apart from Tunisia, there is no other country protesting that you can compare with Uganda, because Uganda is a military dictatorship. Nigeria is not a militarized dictatorship. These are just political dictatorships or weak democracies. You're talking about Kenya. Kenya is far ahead of Uganda in terms of democratic credentials. So is South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah, so South Africa is miles ahead of us. Even Nigeria is miles ahead of us. So these are political problems with governments that are largely civilian governments. Largely civilian governments. So the context in Uganda is such that even if people were at the same boiling points as in Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya, they wouldn't do what those people are doing, because you have in government a military dictator ready to unleash the military at a moment's notice. And people don't want to go to the street to die. People are simply going to the street to air their views, to demonstrate their opposition to the government, to cry out. They are not trying to commit suicide. So if the price of demonstrating is guaranteed death, like we saw in 2020, then people are simply not going. Now, it's very dangerous. Should they come out the day they come out, because then you are removing the option of a peaceful demonstration. It means that should they actually come out, they are ready to confront you with stones and bombs and petrol bombs and whatever weapon civilians can hold, can get hold of. So it is, you're talking about very different contexts. You can't compare them. Ugandans may have worse problems than Kenya, than Nigeria, but they are not going to come out. Or if they are going to come out, it is going to take long, and there will be a few pockets and they will be smashed.
Like they did.
Yes, you're not going to have a smashing in South Africa. You're not going to have it in Kenya.
And actually the presidents in both countries, I think even in Kenya, they accepted people to protest if they want, as long as they are not violent. The same thing for South Africa. The president accepted you can protest as much as you want, that's your constitutional right, but we will not tolerate violence.
So here, they don't even know that Ugandans have a constitutional right to protest, or they don't care. As you saw, they have no respect for the law. The president himself is telling a government official not to follow the law.
Yeah.
It's in writing, he has signed. And even if he hadn't said that, you know that he's addicted to military solutions. So you're dealing with a very different context.
So in other words, what is happening today across Africa cannot apply in Uganda?
It can only apply with different consequences and different dynamics, but a Kenyan, a South African, a Nigerian will find it easier than a Ugandan to go on the street. And if they go there, they will find different responses from government, from the street agencies. So the risk is not the same. The bravery is not the same involved. The situations are very, very different. It is harder, and it would be bordering on suicidal for Ugandans to attempt and do what is happening in Kenya, because the results are what happened in 2020, November. We saw them. It has never changed. That is it. Every time Ugandans try to protest, they are killed.
Live bullets. So in other words, Ugandans do not have anything to learn from the events that have
No, they have
today.
something to learn, because first of all, Ugandans include the Ugandan government. So they have to learn that it is important to respect the rights of human beings, including the right to protest peacefully. That you should do that. You should guard people rather than beat them up when they protest. And some of the strategies being used, whether it is the kind of marches, the people who are contemplating arrests, the activists, there are things to learn from on whether to go for a sustained consecutive, for example, demonstrations that are continuous, or to pace them in a way that you can keep the momentum and the pressure, then withdraw to regroup and come back. Different contexts, different situations, different threats, but still there will always be something to learn from a protest. A protest is a protest. There's something to learn. You need to be organized, and protests need money. They need money, and if they are not organized, they must be quickly organized. Even if they are spontaneous, then the leaders, they must come in and take charge. Because if you don't organize them with resources, people will get hungry and go back to cook. And that will be the end of the protest.
That's true.
People on the streets must have food, must have water. If there are people who are injured, you must have means of what. Then you must engage the media, you must engage the international community. Everyone must know you're protesting in the world when you're protesting. The way we know that Kenyans are protesting, South Africans are protesting, Nigerians are protesting. And not just everyone in the world, but some critical people who matter, who can actually pick the phone and call the president of Uganda and say that, no, I think this decision you're taking is unwise. That kind of
should find something. That is true. And some of the sparks were usually common things, common to Uganda even. Because we're talking about Kenya, about hunger, the hustler in chief, as they used to call him during elections, promised jobs, promised cheap posho, maize flour. Things never came through. Sort of the same problems we face here. Common things, small things, survival, basics, necessities. Those are the things that usually spark. But today I feel like it has been a lesson to a lot of people. A lot of governments that have not even gotten this experience, but I feel like there is something to pay attention to this thing, because it feels a little bit coordinated, and usually there's always a spillover. Someone was saying Africans' problems are more similar than we care to admit, and usually the spark are usually around the same issues. But you did talk about the politics and especially ours here. I want you to have your legal view on the president's denial of the military, I don't know, should I call them servants, those people in the army, to declare their wealth, the whole IGG declaration of wealth and assets and stuff. What do you think of that move for the president to say, these ones, they have risked everything to protect all of you, you cannot start coming after them?
The president once again forgets that he's stepping out of his boundaries. He has no power to direct Ugandans or Ugandan civil servants to do illegal acts or to refrain from following the law. There is no logic in trying to exert some kind of logic above the law, because even the law has logic. There is logic in law, there is logic in rule of law. So he shouldn't try to create an artificial conflict between law and logic. And what he's calling logic is undefined, it's just ambiguous, it is something neither here nor there. So it was completely unconstitutional, illegal, arbitrary and unwise of President Museveni to start commanding the IGG not to follow the law just because we are talking about the military. But it also shows you and again reaffirms Museveni's character as a military dictator. And he wants to exalt the military over and above every institution of government.
That's true.
And he thinks that the military should be given a princely treatment, accepted, treated like royalty, and they shouldn't be held accountable. He thinks he's the only person to call the military to order, even if that means, even if that relates to declaration of assets. So it was out of order. The president was out of order.
And the funny thing is, I thought even the military servicemen are also civil servants.
Yeah, they are part of the civil service.
They are.
Yeah.
And I thought the IGG, anyways, like you said, it's
So the president has
it's not
questioned
about the
the
law.
applicability of the law to the soldiers. He only says that according to some kind of logic he dreamt about or imagined that
He
they
doesn't
shouldn't follow the law. He knows that they are under the law.
logic that he could not explain. So do you think there is a way that legally that can be bypassed?
It's not only the law that works in Uganda, as you have seen. He has stopped the law from applying. Have you heard that there is a soldier who has declared?
No, I don't
Yeah,
think
so already the law is being ignored and without consequence, with impunity. It just denudes the lie we are in, that we are trying to have a democracy here. As I always tell you, we are dealing with a military dictatorship, and that's the reality.
So do we not have a way out of this?
The way
Are we
out-
now going to be moving on the logic, as you term it, of the president? Because he will wake up and feel like, today I probably don't want people to move, and that's okay. Because, I mean, no law is followed anyway.
And that's what he has been doing. Like, do you know of anything that the president has wanted and doesn't do?
Okay.
He could just give, he could just tell, when he just wakes up and tells media to all focus on his speech, even if there is nothing much to listen to. And in that speech he can say, no one, everyone should remain where they are. And we shall
They will
remain.
remain.
If you try to move out, you should find people who are ready to put you back from where you're coming from. Yeah, it is ridiculous, but it's sad, but it is a reality that we are dealing with right now. People who wish this country will have to ensure they work for the change from the current state of military dictatorship to the democracy that we all pretend to be in and we all aspire to have in this land.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And one more thing in the political space, I wanted to also ask you about the Eric Mwesigwa saga and how that is driving out both ways in politics and the law, having both sides back and forth.
Torture is illegal, it's uncivilized, it's barbaric, it's not justified under any circumstances. So whoever is tortured, why haven't they been brought to book? If it is a NUP, why are the NUP leaders not brought to book? Of course, they know it's a lie. But
But
That's
now
why the thing is, the first time he claimed he was
it
tortured
was the UPDF.
by UPDF. UPDF failed to bring their officers to account.
And it turned himself.
Police failed to investigate this matter. Why? UPDF failed to investigate this matter, and then they conceived the drama skit, which they played for us, in which the man was coming up with a new statement, laboring and making wild allegations, which they pretended to believe, the military spokespersons.
But it's the same person who said both statements, so how do we know which one is factual, which is a lie, fabricated?
No, but there is a latest statement. If they believe it's not their movie, and they believe their movie, that's actually no pleaders, why are they not trying them? Why are they not charging them? Because the man seems to know who tortured him. Whoever tortured that man should be brought to book. That's the rule of law. We can't allow someone to torture someone and they go scot-free. If it was Noop which tortured him, why was government compensating him?
So in other words, we cannot find, if we cannot find any particular, because it looks like both sides.
No.
The
man is has alleged. At least you prosecute both categories if you are confused. But the problem is letting it go as if there's nothing, as if there's no one who tortured. When the torture is very clear, the man does not deny being tortured. He has just changed mind about who tortured him. And if you are a government that believes this man, whose movie you helped prepare, go ahead. Go ahead and charge those people.
But not the problem.
Do you understand?
I'm trying to understand it, but now
you let them defend themselves that it's not credible because he had later said that. That should come in defense. But I want a serious government to prosecute these torturers of this man. A man cannot lose his chest to torture, and you let the culprits scot-free. No? Let them bring them to court. They seem to know them. He has told them. If they can't torture, or they can't charge only the latest culprits, let them charge all, whom he has talked about. And what have the investigations revealed? We don't even have a single police report. All we have are camera clippings of people who are party to some skit. Yeah.
And now the government has good doubt cast that the man is contradictory party, doesn't know exactly who tortured him. So
is that what the government has told you?
Well, no, I mean, it now has a point where
No, we can't assume anything when we have authorities to do their work. Have you seen the police saying anything?
No, they have not.
They are supposed to investigate this matter.
But
do they think the media is going to investigate this matter? Police should investigate this matter if they are serious and they know their work.
But now we'll get to the bottom of this whole case, especially.
That is after investigation. For you want to take over, why doesn't police investigate? For me, that's my problem. Why doesn't the military investigate? They have investigative capacity also.
They do.
And they can investigate and hand over to police. So if they don't want to investigate anything, if they don't want us to give us a real report, they may as well spare us those camera moments. Yeah, they are wasting our time.
But they have done even worse than pay attention. At least now they have, like I was saying, the excuse of doubt being cast is because now they can escape if it were the government. Before, you have represented people who have been openly beaten or tortured by the government, and nothing has been done.
Yeah, there is a reluctance to let their officers face the hook, face the law. Even when you try to prosecute them in civil courts, they send government lawyers to defend them, the torturers. When you open private prosecution, they tell the DPP to withdraw the charges, take over and kill the charges, the proceedings. And until we have real accountability for torture, government-inspired torture, then it shall continue.
But now what does this also say about the whole system of judiciary, especially now being that it's the area where you practice?
Yeah, before you go to the judiciary, And the judiciary is not angelic, but even worse are the security forces that torture these people.
Yes, that is true.
Worse is police that refuses to investigate this whenever it sees that the government is torturing people.
But the institutions that are supposed to make sure that justice is served,
Yeah, so
are they also doing their job?
yeah, so police is part of JEROS, the Justice Law and Order
Order.
sector. There is the office of the DPP.
Yes.
And yes, there is a judiciary. And all of them have failed the people of Uganda when it comes to torture, when it comes to human rights abuses, generally speaking. But the judiciary is not the biggest culprit. The biggest culprit is down. The administrative organs, the police,
They're the ones who fought the actual work, who are supposed to do the actual business.
Yeah, because if you kill the foundation, then
it becomes
you're
hard,
killing
so
a lot. Yeah.
But even then, you have also had this whole it's a whole arm of government, the judiciary. But it also, even in most times, has seemed to contradict itself. Or take
It
the
is.
back seat
It's
and
not
all that.
independent. The law, it is independent only in theory and in law, but in practice, the judiciary is not independent. Its appointment are shrouded in secrecy, and increasingly we have cadre judges populating the judiciary
Yes.
and not able to stand up to the excesses of the executive. Some judges are more executive minded than the executive itself. So in that situation whereby most of the judges are hoping for appointment or promotion from a military dictator, they cannot be independent. They cannot be impartial as required by the Constitution, and that's the problem we are facing.
Does that leave any hope for any person who's seeking for justice? Because most of the things have happened.
Yes,
especially human rights violations.
Hope not because of the magnanimity of the judiciary, but by grace of God, because there will always be those remnants in every situation. And there are some good people in the judiciary who want to do good, or independent people who accidentally get into the judiciary, although the system is wired so that they frustrate those who are independent-minded from entering those corridors. Yeah, so that is the source of hope.
The hope is only good.
Yeah.
Okay. As a believer, I have good faith in that. But I want us to first get the whole idea of human rights and all that. And there has been this whole discussion, especially the one that has been in Parliament, about the Anti Homosexuality Bill and how that is coming. And I have seen a lot of people, some defend, some stand against. Others are standing on the point of culture, others are standing on the point of law and human rights. I want to get your point on your perspective on the Anti-Homosexuality Bill, as it is, the bill as it stands right now.
Yeah, it's necessary. It's unnecessary. It's a redundant piece of legislation. It is a shame that we have adults in Parliament trying to regulate adult sex just because it is same sex. It's a waste of public money.
It's not adult sex alone. Those things are preached in schools. They are taken in.
There is already a law for. There is already a law that deals with sex abuse among children and other forms of sex crime, whether it is rape, defilement, and pedophilia. The law is already there. There is nothing new that this law is doing. You cannot just start legislating for the sake of it. You must first do a legislative background and find out if there is already a law curing that mischief, then you don't waste people's time. And I'm telling you that there is nothing new that is important beyond trying to criminalize the consensual sex among adults. Simply because they have the same sex, simply because you are going to have sex styles that you don't want on the alleged premises of culture. I am not here to stand with anything other than people's rights and the law. Yeah.
Okay, you have a good point, I want to think. But now here is the thing. I want you to also draw a line between culture and the law?
What they are doing is law.
What they are doing is protecting culture.
Which culture?
Culture of the fact that the human nature naturally is made in a particular way, and someone doesn't wake up and feel like...
I think you're bringing feelings. That's not a medical opinion.
No, it's not. It's not a feeling.
Yeah, but what is your authority?
Naturally, my authority is
no,
nature.
Naturally, it's not about raising a voice and you say naturally and you think it's a naturally.
No, it's a nature.
Are you an authority on nature?
Nature is the authority itself.
Are you an authority on nature?
Well, I am part of nature, so
yes,
I kind of
and nature is diverse. You get me? Don't think even here you are even talking about culture, but there is no homogeneous culture of heterosexuality in Uganda. It's not even there. That culture is not, you are just dragging us back to people in Chigezi throwing pregnant ladies in Chisizi Falls. That's why you're taking us back.
No,
in the 19th century. Yeah, because you have an idea of morality, religion, and culture, and they have told you that this same sex is from Europe and so on, and you're believing it. Same sex has always been in Uganda, in all countries in the world. But they have always been oppressed. And that's where you want us to keep no. What we need is protect children from any kind of sex abuse. But we shouldn't try to get into people's bedrooms who are adults to see the kind of sex they are doing and to use the institution of the law to monitor the kind of sex they are doing. No, that is not part of what the law is doing. The law, the parliament, the public institutions, public resources should be used to fight corruption, to create employment, to steer our economy, to protect the environment, to ensure that there is good governance. But this thing of being obsessed with sex and sex and sex in parliament, no. People should get busy.
Let me ask you, Counsel. Does morality inform law?
Law and morality inform each other. And morality is not homogeneous again. The key thing is diversity. Don't think there is one set of moral standard that must be transported into law. No, the law must protect all shades of morality.
Then there ceases to be morality at all. Because then that means everything is...
Yeah, because if it ceases, let it cease. Because morality is not supposed to be a death sentence for diversity. For diversity, no. You have to protect diversity. Difference. We don't need to be robots doing the same things the same way, switched on and off. Yeah, no, it's just... And the good thing you're telling about nature, nature is diverse. You're talking about biodiversity, geodiversity. So morals are also diverse.
They are.
Yeah, it's not.
They are, but
it's not a monotony. It's not homogeneity. It's not same thing. And when you want to think sober about this thing, forget that. Don't be conservative. Don't be swallowed into your religious cloak of your so-called cultural thing. And if you must, then you have to understand it. If it was homogeneous, there wouldn't even have been these issues during the biblical times. During our times, you know that one of the kings in Uganda had that issue.
Even in the Bibles that were made.
You know like that if I don't know other languages, but in our language, there is a language for those kinds of people. They are called Ebitingwa. Just because people are minorities and stigmatized does not mean that our parliament should also gather to carry the same prejudices and crystallize it into law. No, they should do better. They should leave sex into people's bedrooms and do important things in parliament. Really, they should spare us, especially that speaker. She should just get busy with life.
I have tried to... I've heard a lot of people talk about this subject. And sometimes, especially the ones who have been in defense, not that I am on any of the sides, but...
You are, but you cannot.
As an individual,
yeah.
As I do not want to impose what I think on other people. Yeah? My thing is, nature should be nature and should be left to be nature. not fabricate it on the
But
line.
at what point did the
Not-
people who are interested in nature start getting into laws when they are destroying forests?
No, those are the other
You get
sides.
me? People are destroying forests, destroying wetlands. Parliament is folding its hands. And it is pretending to be interested in nature. No, they are not interested in nature. They are being bullied by the speaker.
No,
Pass
this
this law.
is not an issue of the speaker.
No, it is.
No, it is
It
not. I don't
is.
think it is. Only an
You have
issue
not
of the
listened to her.
I have
Listen
actually.
to her and see her bullying them
But you have also
on
had
camera.
You've had a lot of people speak about this, even religious.
This is her project. The government is not interested. The president is not interested. The DPP is not interested in this bill. Who is pushing it? The Speaker of Parliament.
But
Even the Deputy Speaker has grown quieter.
But he also spoke about it.
Yes,
at
yes,
some
he
time.
spoke about it and was educated about it, and you have not seen him speak about it again. He has gone mute. Yes. So it is now the speaker herself in it alone, and she's bullying people, MPs, calling them, trying to push very hard to pass it through. But I doubt she will succeed. Eventually, even if it were to pass, it would be challenged successfully in courts of law. It has no place.
The forces are very many for and against. So
Yeah. Of course, it's popular, the bill, because you're going to have many people coming to it from a religious angle, from the so-called cultural angle, and so on and so forth. A lot of prejudice, ignorance, bias, and political opportunism that is supporting this bill. But on the merits of it, it's a pure waste of time and a distraction from the issues that really affect Uganda. We need good governance in this country. We need a real fight against corruption. We need good roads. We need our youth employed. We need a good education system. We need drugs in our hospitals. We need good hospitals. We need our forests. We need our rivers flowing properly. We need no pollution. We need the wetlands. The issue of sex, we shall take care of it in privacy. We don't want the public to know what kind of sex we play with whom.
no, okay. No, let me ask
And
you.
I don't need a law to tell me how to play sex, and whom to love and whom not to love, whom to kiss and not to kiss, whom to touch, whose breast to fondle. Honestly, the law, I don't need it.
Are we not misusing the, because I've listened to your submission has mostly been on the diversity of nature and you know, as human beings, as a part of nature,
And
we
it
want to be diverse.
It pervades that diversity. It pervades. There are people who are born who are attracted to, they are males and they are attracted to males. You will see them if you look carefully, if you remember very carefully.
I have not seen a lot of science.
You have
proving that.
seen, the science is there, but even before you go to science, you remember very carefully in your schooling, you're growing up, there were boys who wanted to dress like ladies, and there were ladies who wanted to dress like boys.
For the ladies who wanted to dress like boys, yes, I don't.
I have male friends whose voices, when they speak, they are like ladies. They are few, but they are there. You get me?
Yeah.
So there are those characteristics in males which are feminine and in females which are masculine.
Except the problem is we have tried to capitalize on those few to extend the idea that.
And no one is saying that there are many. But remember, even the minority have rights.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So just because the majority play sex in a given manner does not mean they impose their sex styles, preferences, orientation to the entire what? To the entire world. They should enjoy their game the way they do it and let the minority be. For in a democracy, both the minority and the majority matter. It's not a majoritarian tyranny.
In other words, we don't need anything like that. We don't need any law. We don't need legislation on that. Not even to give, not necessarily
Just
to criminalize. But
heterosexuals, let them keep to heterosexual sex. And homos, let them do their homo as long as they are adults. The law has no, we shouldn't waste precious legislative time and resources on that issue.
how about this I want to say hearsay because I have not seen it happen myself. The idea that that whole idea is being promoted and young people, kids, children are given money to do
It is sad that anyone should promote sex amongst kids. It's not just sad when it is same sex, it is sad when a kind of sex. Sex is not for kids.
So shouldn't there be law in that case?
It's already there.
No, the one that is against that, because this one, like they say, is promoted, that they have to even pay people to do that. Is that covered in the existence?
Did you see the bill trying to stop people from paying for sex?
Not exactly. I don't think so.
And you think you can stop people from paying for sex, or is it just only homosex? Do you know that heterosexual sex is paid for? Those MPs, you think there's anyone who has not paid for sex? You'll be shocked. Sex is paid for almost always, whether indirectly or indirectly. Or either directly or indirectly. So this whole thing, the problem for me, where I have a problem, is someone trying to lure young children into sex.
Yes.
Any kind of sex, not just homosexual. Children shouldn't play sex. They should be patient because sex has emotional ramifications,
yes,
financial ramifications, has spiritual implications.
Yes.
It's not for kids. That one must be, they must be protected. That's why we call it a defilement, regardless of whether they consent to it or not. You get me? It's illegal, it's a crime already. You get me? Any luring of people into being defiled is wrong, it's criminal, it's illegal. Children have a law to protect their welfare, and offenses against children are elaborate. But the idea that there is a need for an anti-homosexuality bill is just foolhardy.
Well, would you are a human rights defender and human rights lawyer at that, would you, if this law went through and probably was passed?
I was talking to some MPs on Friday, and I was discouraging them for the same reasons I'm telling you here, that it's wrong for them to focus and to pass such a law, and I hope they don't pass it.
Were you ready to challenge it in the event that it is passed?
I mean, if I wasn't ready, I wouldn't be speaking like this. I'm already giving out signals of my readiness. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for those insights. But, well, a lot of people have their perspectives and opinions on that. And there's just quite enough comments about that. So in due time, we're going to go into this and see what other people think and what maybe your response can be towards that. So we are going to go in for a very short commercial break. When we come, the next hour is mostly going to be about the environment, the directives of NEMA that it's given about the protection of the environment, the disposing off of bins and all that kind of stuff. We are going to see how effective that is, if it's going to work or not going to work, because we seem to have a lot of laws, but with zero implementation. So I want to get a perspective into how that is going to be done and how better can it be to make sure that this time it actually does become effective. We also look into ECOP and the progress that they have made, and the Bugoma Forest, obviously, the whole campaign that Council and some other people are taking against the people who are selling off Bugoma Forest. We will look into a number of that, and then obviously we'll get into your points and the comments and discussions. Let's go for a very short commercial break. We will be right back.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel. Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tami. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajja naku body shaming. Speak up. Genda oba confronting. Obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic ki wandiyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Era kize tata wange amanyera nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially ng'embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season aba takwagala nze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting a topic yona gyandiyagadde twogereko tujja kwa tujogera kwano ku the Alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that very short commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome. My name is Roger Sturiawe, and together with Counsel Eron, we are trying to go into some of the issues that are, have been in our society, most of those that have affected us. Most of them are governance related. Even the very last one that we talked about the Anti Homosexuality Bill, it's also a governance question, and he says for him, you cannot want to regulate nature as it is, so it has to be diverse. Anyone can do whatever they wish because, anyone probably feels different or depending on how they feel it is. So it's upon whoever, as long as it's not on children. So that was his position. Some of you, I understand, have questions on a religious background, and he says he is a Christian also. So I guess he'll have to answer some of those questions. But this second hour, I want us to talk a little bit about the environment and what the government is doing currently to make sure that we keep it and try to control what is literally getting out of hand. And so I want to begin with the NEMA, the law, the directives they were giving, and what they were saying that, for example, if you drive a car and you don't have a dustbin in your car, the chances that you will either pay a fine or be imprisoned or do both. Counsel, do you think that is going to be effective?
We shall see. Time will tell, but as an environmentalist, I have no problem with having a small dustbin. Maybe it could be a paper bag, it could be, depending on the car and so on and so forth. But we need to find a way of controlling pollution, controlling wastage and litter and wastage disposal. I get shocked when you see people throwing husks and
out of
from their cars. It's wrong, and someone must stop it. And I support NEMA's move to try to stop it. Maybe some of the fines seem high, but if that is what we take to instill some discipline in us, then so be it. I hope government leaders will show an example, we will live by example, and we don't see garbage out of leaders' cars flying and hitting the street. And I hope it is uniformly enforced and strictly enforced. That is my hope, but I have no problem with the idea of stopping people from littering the city. Kampala is really dirty.
Yeah, it
We
is.
need to clean it up.
It's very dirty.
And nature is not a toilet. We need to find how to properly dispose of waste, how to recycle things, how to use the less, and how to manage our consumption.
The law is good, and I think for any person who is a well-wisher, who cares about the environment as it is, they should be happy. The problem we have always had and has been consistent is that we will have a law, good or bad, but it usually stays in the books. It doesn't come to the ground, to the implementation.
Yeah, that is the history. The law is new. NEMA has a new leadership. Let's see. I mean, it won't be long before their commitment will soon be tested, and their seriousness and the seriousness of Uganda Police Force to enforce these directives. It will soon be tested, and why I say it should be uniformly enforced, I know that the big fishes has not yet been removed from wetlands. Yeah, the hotels are still there in the wetlands, and some poor people have been removed.
Yes.
So what I want is uniformity in enforcement and consistency, and I'm saying time will tell. I don't want to speculate. I wish NEMA succeeds in this. So let me hope it will be a different story from what you are used to.
Yeah, usually we have I don't know if it's a saying or...
the only serious laws that people tend to enforce here are political laws, POMA, computer misuse. So I know where you're coming from, but at least if there is one area where we need to get our act together as a country, where we need to be collective, responsible, and serious, it is in protecting nature, keeping it clean, and protecting our natural resources like forests, like climate, like wetlands, like those kinds of things, so that we don't head into the future without things to protect us from climate change. Yeah, we shouldn't pollute our own environment because we will fall sick. Our children will fall sick. And we need the environment for our food, for our medicine, for our rain. We need it for everything. Yeah.
And what do you think, Counsel, that we need to do differently from what we have been doing, apart from obviously the littering and all that, especially in the implementation and laws? Because like you said, you understand the history does not give me so much faith in what this law is. So how do you think this can be done differently that it becomes effective?
Uniformly, consistently, and seriously. They need to start with momentum on day one, arrest all those guys, day 2, day 3. If after 6 months they are seriously enforcing these regulations, it would have become a culture. But we have been in an area where taxis are told to have seat belts, and some buy seat belts for 1 month or 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And it goes into history.
And you can imagine taxis, they are traffic police every single day on the roads.
Yeah. So someone thinks that there was someone trying to get a deal. But this is a good move. It's for nature, and they are not telling you to buy dustbins from a particular supplier. So no one is cooking up a deal to get the money, like for seat belts
and border reflexes
or reflectors or helmets. This is genuine goodwill. I hope the police doesn't frustrate it. I hope the people who usually frustrate good things don't frustrate it, and I hope that the NEMA has the resources in terms of human resource and the resolve to stick to this for at least 6 months. If they can do it well for the first 6 months, then hopefully the culture would have been embedded within our psyche, within our psychology, within us, to continue even when we are not supervised, because some of these things are easy to do only if you are schooled in them, if you are accustomed to them. Yeah.
Doesn't it also ring some sort of contradiction? We have had, especially have had a campaign with Bugoma Forest and all that likes, and NEMA is obviously one of those entities that have been at the center of those issues and businesses. if it has failed to implement some of those, especially the most important, that Mabira can probably get sold off or get cut down, and NEMA is here, but they have failed to implement the laws in those areas, and we have hope for these small ones.
NEMA and NFA and Ministry of Environment, they do some things, but there is a lot they can do in the area of protecting our wetlands and forests, and I hope they get to do that. But their failure in those respects, I will not use it to
They are the same institution.
to think that they can't do it. Maybe the Holy Spirit has visited them.
Why has
For
it
me,
failed
I'm
on
an
the others?
optimist. Yeah, I'm an optimist. At least NEMA has new leadership, and let's give them the benefit of doubt. It won't be long before we tell whether NEMA is serious about this thing or not,
Okay.
or whether it is the usual rhetoric.
Okay.
I think we should give them the benefit of doubt.
Like you said, let's try to be a little bit optimistic. Now, I also wanted to get your progress on the Bugoma forest case.
I think the latest milestone is that NEMA finally agreed with us that Hoima sugar is damming our environment, is deforesting, and tried to stop it. I haven't checked again. This is whether Hoima sugar finally listened to its regulator or not, but the sooner they revoke the license of Hoima sugar, the better for everyone involved. There is really no point of allowing land use change from a forest to sugarcane growing. Yeah, there is basically no reason, no logic, and the sooner the license is revoked, the better, because Hoima sugar is not going to listen to anyone. They have impunity, the people behind them are big and high up in the government, and even if it means compulsory acquiring the land that Hoima sugar pretends to own, then we should do that. But we cannot afford, in the era of battling a climate emergency, to surrender a precious forest like Bugoma to the jaws of a sugar baron. Yeah.
Has government done any more than promising and all that kind of stuff? Are you positive that?
No. Unfortunately, some people in government are clearly on the side of Bugoma. Bugoma is, I'm telling you, it is backed by high people in the military and the political elite.
Yeah, I had rumors on some of the people.
Its deforestation is guarded by soldiers, so that you know where its source comes from. So we appeal to the powers that be, especially President Museveni. This is a simple issue for him to solve, to call off those soldiers, to put sense into these people, and really, like he said in one of these recent speeches, we need these forests, we need these rivers, and the right family shouldn't be allowed to come in Uganda and destroy our forests. No.
Okay, so we are again keeping the optimism that government will come through eventually.
Yeah, we are hoping. That's where religious thing is needed. You need faith. Even if it is a grain, but you need it.
Small as a mustard seed.
It's very difficult to think that this government can do something good, but when you have faith, then maybe it will happen.
You have something to hold on to. I went to Kalangala some time back, and you know Bidco. Bidco has like a very big plantation, the palm oil and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people, apparently, they said, because I can't say that it's a fact because I wasn't there before, but they said that most of them are squatters on what were initially their lands. You know how they come, find like, they want like 100 acres, and they will say, people who are all in this place, move. If you can't move, we are going to plant here palm oil, and you will only become squatters, so you will literally work for us. And that was working. And most of them were saying that they have been back and forth with the government, nothing seems to be coming out, and they have sort of lost hope and given up, and only are working actually for them. And there's too much violations of human rights apart from just the displacements and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, is there anything more than just hoping for what the government could decide to do?
It's difficult. I think ultimately these things need an answer to the governance questions. Normally that would mean changing the government, but that would require democracy, which we don't have here.
Yes.
Yeah, so people have to explore ways of how to change for the better the people that lead this country, and usher in a new leadership that takes rule of law seriously, that is committed to human rights, that is committed to democracy. Otherwise, what we have currently is opposed to all of those important tenets of civilization.
That's true. Okay, now I also want to get your the highlight of the progress of the ECOP campaign, the Stop ECOP campaign. At least you were one of those.
It's ongoing. It's ongoing, and also ECOP efforts to further ECOP are also ongoing. So ECOP is going ahead, and the Stop ECOP camp is going ahead until one of them has a decisive victory, and either ECOP stops or the campaign stop. It will continue.
Do you still have hope that it will stop, especially after the EU literally okaying the whole project?
Who told you the EU okayed it?
No, at first, of course, they gave the directives and all that, but they seem to be a little liberal moving forward and having it continue, which it has.
Talking
it
in
has not
general
stopped.
terms. There is a standing resolution. Do you have a resolution reversing the EU stand?
Not exactly, but also.
So then you can't say that they have given it a green. Resolutions cannot be wished away in a talk in a bar or a government whisper there.
But
You will need another resolution to do away with resolution, and that's not coming. As for ECOP, the reasons that it's being opposed, at least for me, the reason I'm opposed to ECOP are climatic.
pure.
Yeah, it's purely climatic. Even today, there is a new report coming in, and the science is clear against any new oil infrastructure, any new coal infrastructure, any new fossil fuels, because they are incompatible with the Paris Agreement of keeping the global heating below 1.5 degrees compared to pre-industrial times.
Yes.
If you want to avoid an environmental catastrophe, if you want to avoid worsening floods, worsening mudslides, worsening droughts, worsening food insecurity in Uganda, we have to tackle climate change, including dealing away with fossil fuels, including stopping oil, anything to do with oil, because that's where the source of problems come. Yeah, there are also health problems associated with oil infrastructure, and they have been elaborated elsewhere in the reports of World Health Organization and other scientific sources, but briefly they have to do with cancer, they have to do with the birth complications and blood complications, especially for people near oil infrastructure. That's why you should expect when the oil extraction goes ahead. For those reasons and others, and the fact, of course, that I know the governance deficit we have here, that you're not even going to see the oil money, even if it finally comes. I think they should stop ECOP, and we focus on profiting from nature, from protecting nature rather than destroying it, because we will even get more money than we can ever dream of getting from oil if we protect and expand our forests, if we protect our wetlands, and if we build our resilience to the inevitable consequences of climate change, which are already here because we refuse to take the heat that we should have taken 20 years ago, and so on and so forth.
Is your campaign making any progress?
Yes, because more people are getting aware of the problems associated with not just ECOP, but the failure to take climate action, the failure to protect our environment, the failure to protect our biodiversity. Basically, an attempt by man to work to destroy nature is very disastrous, and that is a good example of destroying nature is ECOP. Carbon dioxide, concentrating carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is very dangerous, and the carbon cycle gets disturbed when you dig up fossil fuels and throw carbon in the air. You make oceans acidic, and you increase droughts, you make rainfall more stormy, you get people dying for doing that. And we are telling the government that for the sake of people and the planet, stop it. If it doesn't make sense to some people now, it soon will. It won't take long.
And how are you making it known to mostly the common people? Because most of these things usually affect them. At least the effects.
Yeah, they are the worst affected. They will suffer first, and they are the least able to defend themselves from the hazards. Even just like mere mild floods, like you saw kids who were swimming in a flooded house. The diseases that are going to come from there.
From that, yes.
It's just unfortunate. So poor people, rather ordinary people, it is about trying to reach them where you can find them, on radio, on those who are on social media. But ultimately, it's not just our responsibility to reach ordinary people and tell them these things. It is government. It's government. Government has resources, has infrastructure, has manpower to do this work. For us, we supplement. We don't have all those resources. We are not a government. So government must do its work of educating its people about environment, about the climate emergency, about biodiversity loss, about pollution, and how to fight it, and not think that it's going to rely on volunteers and society and some humanitarian people to do that. No, that's a government function. Yes.
And so where we stand, and not just Uganda as one, but generally as a globe, because this is a general problem. It's not something that is only in the confines of Uganda and the neighboring countries and all that. Generally, how do we...
UN is taking a lead.
How do we undo these failures?
Yes, UN is taking a lead in trying to bridge the gap between science and policy by bringing the scientific community in and connecting it with the policy makers, the leaders, the political leaders, who are the ones who can make things change. And the political leaders have been ignoring the science, and we continue to call on them to unite behind the science, to listen to the scientists on climate change and do what they are telling them. Because while the leaders are interested in the next election, in the next deal, the nature is not interested in all those things. If you misbehave, it will hit and hit you hard. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you are NRM, NOP, FDC, UPC, you will all be hit, and you will be hit increasingly harder. If someone is in doubt, they should just watch and see how each year will be worse than the previous one in terms of environmental push consequences. Nature breeds. When the nature bleeds, people die. So people shouldn't be joking around with nature. It strikes back in a very little fashion. And that's what it's doing at a global level. Some countries are going to be submerged.
I saw what happened in, I think, was it
what they
Brazil?
call low-lying states. So fires in some states are getting wilder each year. In the UK, at some point, the temperature reached 50 degrees. Yet it's a temperate area where they are normally in negatives. So weather extremes will continue worsening because of climate change.
And now we seem to have had, this problem has mostly been driven with by the business of capitalism and making profits, obviously, as it has always been said by climate activists.
It's one of the excesses. It's global warming, climate change. They show the limitations of capitalism. That you cannot trust people who are making profits to save the world.
So how do we not? Because the world seems to be getting more capitalist, how do we now strike a working balance between the climate change and the capitalism?
So capitalism has its good side, but it should be limited. That's why governments exist, to regulate, so that they cut on the excesses of capitalism. They ensure that they guide the invisible hand so that it does not rob us of our lives and future through doing things that worsen climate change. And in simple terms, we need to stop fossil fuels. And that's science. It's not an opinion. It's a science. It's saying no more fossil fuels, no more coal, no more oil, no more natural gas. Stop it, and then we start healing. But if you continue pushing carbon from deep underground, deep undersea, and put it in the atmosphere, then the climate will continue changing, worsening, and more lives will be lost, and more fires will be lit, and more glaciers will melt, and more animals will be extinct, and other species, and so on and so forth. And the future, this earth will at some point stop being a livable, and the livable conditions will cease to exist. Yeah, and basically, they are calling it the sixth mass extinction. Because of greed, or what you call capitalism, human beings are literally writing their own death sentences.
So in this whole quagmire, I should call it, of capitalism and wanting more profits and more profits over at the cost of the environment, do you think it's important to include equity and the historical emissions in the discussion to try to address this whole
Yes, the
problem?
importance of equity is very important. Climate justice, the big countries, the developed countries, which since the Industrial Revolutions have the biggest responsibility, historical responsibility for bringing us really to the situation where we are, they should be ahead of us. They should provide finance for us to undertake climate action, and they should be the first ones to stop even doing the wrong things, including extraction of fossil fuels.
Most of the projects that are happening literally across the world are at least either spearheaded or one of the biggest partners.
Or even financed.
Financed mostly.
Even
actually,
what is happening here
the
is being financed from the West, and that's where the politicians in the West really need to wake up and stop being populist and really rein on their banks. Yeah, stop them from financing fossil fuels, rein on their business class, and rein on themselves. Yeah, the thing is that the fossil industry, they are big enemies. They have too much money. They bully people around the world. Not just here. Governments here are bullied by these big oil, but also even in the West, they are also bullied by the same people, because where elections are and they can inject money into your political opponent. So they bully people a lot. But even to them, we are appealing them directly because they really have grandchildren. Or why are they pushing us into this? We don't deserve it. They should think of how to make money in other ways. They are trying to transform some of them into renewables, and that's a very important climate action, just transition from fossil fuels into renewables, but they need to make it quicker and faster, rather than dilly-dallying.
And in the meantime, I think the rest of us who are at the receiving end are going to have to wait for when the progress overflows.
Yeah, that is the real problem, is that, as you said, we are vulnerable people and will get worst hit. Yeah, and for me, that's why I don't want to, that's why I think we should take all the action we need to take within our means, and not to do anything wrong just because the West is doing it. Because although they are historically responsible, for them they are capable of shouldering themselves. Yes, that's true. And here we don't have that capability. We can't even stem a simple flood here. Yeah. We can't even fix a road. Just fixing a small road. We can't fix it. In the Kamudini, they have decided even to remove the tarmac. Because anyway, the tarmac was interfering in the road. So just stop the pretense and just remove the small patches of tarmac, so it is a normal maram. Yeah. So that attitude cannot deal with climate change. We need to get better leaders. We need to get better as a society. We need to educate ourselves about the problem and the solutions.
And now this is a problem that does not, it's sort of what would generally call the global powers seem to not work now. Because it's, well, there's politics involved, but there are players who are not exactly political, but they can pull the shots. So I don't know how we are going to have to influence that, especially from us who are at the lower end. So I don't know how to get to that. But anyway, I wanted to also ask you about you sort of hinted about it, the science and politics, where we have
the scientists are saying one thing,
yes,
the politicians are doing the
another.
opposite, not just the other.
Yeah.
The politicians are doing the exact opposite. What the science warned politicians against doing, the politicians are doing, and that is because of opportunism.
Exactly.
Because they fear to lose their power, because they are thinking about the next election, because they want the biggest oil deal. And some economies are dependent on destroying our climate. Saudi Arabia, Russia, and so on and so forth. So there is need for a paradigm shift to look for alternative ways of earning income other than in this eco-suicide of fossil fuel addiction. Yeah, we just have to accept that this thing doesn't work.
How do we,
especially it is dangerous, and that by the grace of God we now have solutions. We have renewables, and the cost is coming down. Yeah, even as we speak, it is cheaper to install a solar panel in a remote village in any part of Africa than trying to take their electricity or any other form of energy. Yeah, so we need to focus on that, on renewables, and transit from our fossil fuel addiction. That is not the only thing, but that is really the starting point. We need to stop relying on petrol. There is technology that we will have to stop driving cars that rely on petrol and diesel and use electric cars. It will be in a phased manner, but those cars are coming, and the mindset must change.
But now the problem is even the people who are advocating for those changes are using the same things.
Because they are not yet available on the market, because we don't have aeroplanes that are yet. So that's why we need everyone on board, so that the car companies are already coming on. Some car companies are doing hybrid cars. I'm actually told the cars that are being assembled in Rwanda have hybrid system. You
so
can use both electricity and what?
Or you like decide which one you want to use?
Yes. And there you start getting people to think about electricity. We need high-speed electric trains. We need the charging points, so that we encourage people who can afford the Tesla cars to buy them, and who also aspire to buy them. But increasingly the price will come. They will be cheaper. Electric cars will be cheaper, and hopefully we shall have the gadgets here to charge them, and we shall transit.
But as all of things happen, as we have the problems of politics and science and the multinational corporations.
But ultimately, we have no choice. We have to listen to the science or die.
Yeah, that's true. Now, what I'm saying is, how do we get the governments on the side of science as people? Because, okay, possibly it is true that maybe some governments do not actually understand this whole thing altogether.
No, governments understand it. Forget, governments understand it. But governments want to do the popular thing. So the population needs to be educated. Yeah, anything that can be done to educate the population about the dangers of climate change, about the causes of climate change, about solutions to climate change, will be a step forward in trying to make our politicians behave better. Because if enough people care about environment, then politicians, for opportunistic purposes, will try to quote that population, and in quoting that population, they will provide political solutions that rhyme with what nature wants, what the environment wants.
It will take a lot of us.
So it's important to carry out a lot of public education.
Okay. So in other words, my next question was going to be, how do people help? But it looks like it has to be begin from the ground up.
Yes. People need to be sensitized so that they demand action, and once there is a groundswell of demand, then the politicians will change their positions to align with the people and nature, because right now they think people don't care about these things, and so that's why they are not listening to them. But the bigger reason is that the big oil, it's lucrative.
Yeah, it is.
And also it's what they are used to.
It's what has been there. It's
So
what we
change
know.
is not something people easily warm up to. Yeah.
That's true. Okay, so I'm going to go through a number of comments that are here. There's a Conrad watching from Copenhagen. Thank you for inviting Counsel Eron Kiiza. Brian is watching from Kampala, live from Ntinda, Kakuru. Oite Odongo, live from Oyam district. Navukenya Brenda says, blessings, thank you so much. Oite Odongo says, but Mr. Mwesige has stated it clearly that it was stage managed on a promise of 50 million shillings. That is voluntary torture, I think. About the Eric Mwesige saga.
Even if he hadn't stated it, it was
what
very
is your
clear.
point on voluntary torture?
On voluntary torture.
Yeah, because
Torture is torture. I don't care. I mean, you cannot consent to torture. It can't even be voluntary. The idea, that's ignorance from the word, using the word.
This one has literally consented to the process, so isn't it voluntary? If by the time you accept that you're going to be burnt on the promise of
Do you
50
believe that he consented to being tortured?
well, if he says he was
No,
promised...
no, do you believe him?
Me as an individual, I don't know if I should believe him. I don't know what to
Anyway,
believe.
even if you did, it doesn't matter. What I'm telling you, that torture, the one who causes torture cannot plead consent. Because torture is visible. The consequences are there. Torture is illegal, regardless of whether, even that assumed consent is illegal. You cannot consent to an illegality. Do you get my mind?
Yes.
Yeah, so the idea, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, is idle talk in a bar. I don't buy it. It's just useless. It's irrelevant. Once someone has been tortured, it's irrelevant whether to discuss the question of consent or voluntariness. What we need to discuss now is why are the torturers not being brought to book? That's the only important
Whether it's
thing.
voluntary or otherwise.
It makes no difference. It's an idle talk to start suggesting that this torture was consensual. No, that consent was illegal, null and void. Bring the culprits to book.
Odongo says, keep up the good work. Nacho Rita says, so, to Counsel Eron, he was born out of homosexuals.
Rita should stop being stupid. I
If
didn't
not,
say that.
It's still going.
You get me?
If not, then you should know what it is, that it is nature. Secondly, if it is not nature as he claims, what scientific evidence does he have to prove that homosexuality is normal? Why are funders injecting in much to make people love it? Why don't they inject in straight up?
She's making wild claims which are baseless, really, and I don't need to dignify them with answers. But it's not my duty to educate Rita. She needs to start doing research. If she wants to debate with me, yeah, she needs to do research. She needs to read like I do. If you are going to think that ignorance can debate with knowledge, then you are misleading yourself.
I think this whole thing has a lot to do with objectivity, other than knowledge and lack of it.
So you cannot be objective in ignorance.
Okay. The same nature is actually, she has another question. Is Counsel Eron a Christian?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a devout Christian. I believe in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
The question goes ahead.
Yes.
Which book in the Bible clears homosexuality?
Which
As a
book?
Christian.
So that's the problem with Rita. She thinks Uganda is a theocracy. It's not. Uganda is not a cathedral. It's not a temple. We are talking about a state. You cannot start using instruments of state to promote Christianity over Islam. Some Ugandans are pagans, Rita. You can't impose your Christianity on everyone that breathes in Uganda. So if you really want a platform, a pulpit to preach, the parliament is the wrong place for you to go.
I think our question was in relation to your answer of whether you
No,
are
it's
Christian.
about the bill. She wants to legislate her Christian beliefs. That's not the purpose of parliamentarians.
She said
We don't send parliamentarians to propagate their religious agendas. You get me? So if people somehow think that the role of parliament and legislature is to instill Christianity in the non-believers, that's wrong. That's dangerous. That's Christian fundamentalism.
Is that Christian fundamentalism or some sort of perceived morality?
You want to create an equivalent of an Islamic state in Uganda? Is that what you want here?
So
A Christian state?
Let me ask you, is morality objective or subjective?
I didn't come here to discuss morality. You get
But
me?
it's what
You
has
are the one
driven-
driving me to morality.
No, it's what has driven
You
this
get
whole
me?
discussion. The
It's
reason
not
why
objective, of course. Morality is subjective. Your morals are different from mine, to start with.
but they are general, and they are general standards.
Yes, they are general standards, but even how we perceive them can be different. How they are applied, and so on and so forth. So they are not like written in a complete. So the problem with people like you and Rita, you want us to use the Bible and substitute it with our constitution. No, we have a constitution that runs a country called Uganda, and Uganda is not a church. Uganda is not a religious faith. Really, let's meet in church on Sunday. Let's pray for each other and each other, but let's not confuse our country with the church. That's not what we need.
So how our point was to continue. If two cities, Gomorrah and Sodom, why does he justify the silly act? So Aaron says he can practice the vice anytime from now. If no, why does he want to impose to
If she thinks that these homosexuals are demon possessed, she should intercede, she should pray, she should fast, if she really cares about them, and exorcise those demons from them. No one is stopping her. But to think that she's going to legislate her religious beliefs into a law and the rest of the country moves along. Not everyone is a Christian in Uganda. Not even everyone believes in God in Uganda. They are pagans. Should we excommunicate? Do you want a law removing pagans in Uganda?
No.
Do you want a law illegalizing Islam or Hinduism or African tradition or what? In Uganda, even witch doctors have a place to live.
Yes.
So don't think that you're going to impose your Christian beliefs here. There is the laws that run Uganda are different from the books that we use to worship. Yes, this is a clear distinction.
Okay, so Conrad says the Nazi regime arrested and tied tens of thousands of gay men using paragraph 175 of the German Criminal Code between 1933 and 1945. Today, this is considered a terrible crime. Does Uganda want to continue what Hitler did in Germany?
The answer is no. He was a terrible dictator. He was, part of the problems that you see in Israel and Palestine, they can be traced to him. Probably if he had not done what he did, it would not have been necessary for the Jews to think of finding a new state. Maybe, yeah. So he was a worst case scenario. Whatever he did needs to be avoided, and the political leaders should learn from him to avoid his mistakes and not to regurgitate them, not to copy and paste them.
And Kakwenza Luchelewa says, thank you so much for watching. He says Uganda is a republic governed by laws, not the Bible. He seems to be agreeing with you. He seems to be agreeing with you.
Yeah.
But I think most of the people have had the whole heated discussion has always been on what will probably be generally perceived as morality or accepted as morality, because everyone has to see their version of it.
Yeah, so there is law and there is morality. They influence each other, but they shouldn't be confused with each other. And you can't transport all your morals and infuse them into the law. No. I really can appreciate Christians who want to pray for gays. It's okay, let them go ahead and pray. They shouldn't just bring their prayer and legislate it. The same way we don't want Islamic fundamentalism legislated here or anywhere in the country, in the world.
So,
because you know how problematic it can be.
Someone else is also asking, why are they promoting it?
Who is promoting it?
We are not against them, but against promotion.
I mean, at least there is some sense there. If you're thinking people are promoting it, yeah, there is.
That probably the problem is not that people are, but the idea that some people have to promote it.
Yeah, and the people have been asking, who is promoting it?
Well,
you keep saying people are promoting, but not showing who is promoting, not naming who is promoting it. Yeah, okay, so it remains here and there. But I agree. This is sex matters of sex are private. They shouldn't be publicized. People should stop. Getting them out of their privacy. We should respect the privacy of this space we call sex, whether it is same sex or opposite sex.
But it shouldn't go public.
Yeah. I mean, we should respect the dignity and the sanctity of sex and its privacy.
The ones who are also promoting should respect it.
Everyone.
That it stays
everyone.
Not throw it in
everyone should keep it private. Respect everyone.
You did. I think some people just need to understand that you are a lawyer. It will make a lot of answers easy, because if you say that who is promoting it, that has sort of been a public secret. But obviously we can play the card of who is promoting it, and we'll try to find some invisible hand, which we'll probably not come up with. But some people know. People actually generally know that this thing is actually promoted.
There were some people saying that even this homo bill is being promoted by the American far right, pumping some money here. So these are just thoughts and suspicions.
Yes,
and we can't start analyzing law on the basis of suspicion or legislating on the basis of suspicion. Yeah,
that's true. Okay, so I think we are sort of concluding. You want to get your last remarks on any of the subjects. One, climate change, that seems to be something that is very important and very close to you. I realized you came with a book. He has a book. I don't know if this will be promoting, but he has a book called The Climate Book by Greta Thunberg. Most of you have probably seen this book. Or at least know Greta Thunberg, that climate activist that is, everywhere. So I want you to give us, the people who are watching you at the other side of the screen, what them as individuals need to do to make sure that the fight in this whole fight is collective and everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. And then you can conclude with the human rights and our state generally.
Yeah, I think first with the book. This is a very interesting book that I encourage everyone to buy and read. I bought one using Amazon platform. It has articles of over 100 scientists, climate journalists, and artists who have combined their wisdom to guide us on how to tackle the climate emergency. Yeah, we need to protect nature, because in nature is where we live, in nature is where we get our medicine, in nature is where we get our food. That's how we survive. That's how we even earn our living, our income. That's why our environment, our forests, our wetlands must be protected fiercely.
Yeah.
We cannot do that unless we educate ourselves about these things. Reading the right books, Googling about these things, going to YouTube and watching the relevant videos, and then we know about the solutions we need to push back against the environmental degradation and how to preserve the biodiversity. We need a simple act is plant trees. Stop littering the environment with plastic waste. Try to use less plastics and try to recycle where we can, and ensure that we are responsible citizens generally, and we stop people who are deforesting our forests. We fight back against the deforesters. We shouldn't be building in waterlands. We are not frogs, in the words of Kahindo Tafire. So we should be responsible citizens, and we should take interest in the governance of this country so that we hold our government to account on how they are governing our natural resources. And that goes in hand with pushing for human rights respect, because a country which does not respect human rights cannot even protect its natural resources. And it will oppress environmental defenders, it will oppress all kinds of human rights defenders. So we need a better governed Uganda, because the governance that we have now has caused all sorts of problems. It relies too much on the gun rather than the consent of the people. We need to shed that culture and work for a new Uganda that treasures consensus, that treasures negotiations, dialogue over violence and force. Thank you for listening to me.
There's one last one before you conclude. Someone says, has Counsel Eron and Environment Shield made some efforts in joining hands with NEMA in protecting the nature?
Yes, we are supporting good causes that the NEMA brings, and in carrying out environmental education, we are supplementing the work of NEMA specifically and the government generally. Yes, that's how we are doing to support the NEMA.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much. Thank you, Counsel, for your time, first of all, and for learning from you. I every time I do, at least myself.
Thank you.
I get a lot of insights, especially now on, well, I have my position, but it is important to also understand some insights.
You don't need to apologize for your
No, I am not apologizing. I'm just saying I'm appreciating some perspectives, different perspectives. Not that it will probably change my position, but it's important to know. Like you said, someone cannot speak from a point of ignorance or something. So it's important to know, so I am appreciative of that. And also for your time, for always accepting our invitations to come here. We are grateful to always bring from your wisdom of knowledge. And so we hope that the next times, should issues avail themselves that we know you're only an expert in, we will surely reach out, and I hope that you respond positively as you have today. So thank you so much for your time. And my name is Roger Stoyawe. Have yourselves a very good night. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.